Everybody, it's me, Jennifer Stenhouse from Little Metal Foxes. Hi, how are you all? We wanted to do our tool tips tonight and talk to you guys about pickle. And so, hi everybody. So we're hey Jan, hi Kenzie, hello Queen Street Sterling, hello, hi everybody, hi Helen. So yes, what I want to do is see if I can get Julia Lowther to join me. She's got some great tips tonight too. And we're going to talk about pickle because I know that pickle can be really overwhelming for a lot of people. And I really wanted to sort of take a minute and just talk about pickle. So let's get Julia on here. There she is. I can see her. And let's see if we can add Julia. Let's see. And hang on a second. There we go. And I'm gonna invite her to join me here. Yes, and do I have in a room? Yes, I do. There we go, with her and her. See if you guys want to join me in the room and say hi and hear your tips. There's Helen. Hi, Helen. How are you tonight?
Hello.
I'm
good. How are you?
I have to switch my video.
And there's Julia. Welcome. Hello. How are you all doing?
Hi, everybody.
This fine evening.
Cheers.
Hey, everybody. Cheers. Yes, cheers.
I got my water. Hydrate. Gotta hydrate.
Exactly right. It's important.
I realize my bangs are getting so long. I look like a Shetland pony.
Oh my God. I feel like I'm starting to look like some sort of Japanime wizard.
I know. I like it. It's good. I kind of liking the longer. I'm kind of liking the COVID long hair, though. I want to get all this cut off because it was so short before that now I need to cut all this off because it's really thin. But I'm kind of thinking I'm going to keep the heavy bangs. I sort of like the Shetland pony.
Yeah, I do too. I like the bangs. Oh, yes. Oh, Kinsey, have you not seen the mug?
Yeah.
What? Yes, look at that. What? Fox in the round. Yes.
I love my mug.
What does the fox say? Yes. I love the fox mug. And yeah, but I want to touch base with you guys about pickle because everybody has their pickle recipes and pickle favorites. And I know there's still a lot of people that are very unsure about their pickle and what they're doing with it, and how to make it and how strong to make it and how to dispose of it and everything else. And I wanted to sort of share some of the things that I do with mine and some tips that really are helpful. And I know, Julia, you've got some great tips, really specific ones about disposing of it and holding on to some of it. And yeah.
There's also this.
What's that? Tell me about that. That looks like a tea strainer.
It is a tea strainer, man. You just nailed it. So Jeanette Keynes, who where is she? Chicago? I can't remember where she is, but she's awesome. She's really smart, and she does a lot of teaching, and she's been teaching for years. And she does a lot of granulation. So I learned about this from her.
Oh, that's smart.
This is a plastic tea strainer
for small parts.
And if I can get it open.
Very clever.
It opens like this. Right. So you can put your granules in it,
or small post, or whatever,
or small thing, or whatever.
Yeah, small parts.
Yeah. So if you're gonna pickle something, you can drop this in the pickle, and it will pickle the thing.
Nice.
Or you can also use it to copper plate. If you're copper plating granules, because you can put a tiny amount of anything in here and copper plate it.
Oh yeah. Well, that's smart. Yeah. Well, my trick for like holding things, one of the things we use at Baleen is actually like the plastic coffee filters. So we can sort of put stuff in and take it out all at one time. And it just makes it really easy. So we usually have 3 or 4 of those sitting around our pickle area that we just, put earrings in, put them in, take them out. And one of my favorite things here in my studio is this one, which is a pickle dipper, an actual pickle dipper.
An actual pickle dipper.
From a jar of cornichons. So it's,
oh my God.
And it's great for just sort of dipping, and it has a little thing, so it sort of hangs on the edge as well. Those are great.
Perfect.
Tiny laundry baskets. Look at those.
So these tiny laundry baskets. You know what these are?
They're Barbie laundry baskets.
They're tiny. They're Barbie laundry baskets. I think they're ricotta cheese.
Oh,
So the ricotta cheese has these little baskets, which are perfect because they have, they have little
Yes.
holes in them and they're all plastic. I just haven't gotten to the trouble of making a little handle. I need to make a little copper handle, copper, not steel, so
Yeah.
I can lift it in and out. But these work really well if you don't have super tiny things. If you have super tiny things that need to go in the pickle, then a
Yeah.
coffee filter or something like
That
this
works great. Yeah.
is really good.
Yeah.
super
Um,
handy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Plus,
Yeah.
it's just so freaking cute. It just lives
That's
with
a
my
that's a brilliant
granulation
idea.
stuff.
Yeah, that's a brilliant idea. Yeah, I like any of the little things that are going to be good for that.
The
Also,
pickle dipper.
too,
I'm loving the pickle dipper.
yeah, one of my favorite things too is that, and it's like for $1, brass tweezers.
Oh,
Nice.
I got to
yeah.
tell you, having a pair of small brass tweezers is so great. Because if I'm working with filigree and parts like that, a lot of times I'll put the part in the pickle, and it's like one little wire will fall off, and I'm like, and you can't get to it with these things. They're kind of like trying to get into your pickle with this stuff, or the bamboo ones, and those work fine. But it's just like when you got something really small that you need to like pick up. I love these little brass tweezers, and they are, they're just it's like a double A tweezer from India, but I believe you can get them from most jewelry supply places. But I got these at the hardware store. No, I
Got
think.
them at Hardwoods,
Thank you,
didn't
Haley.
you?
I appreciate the purple hair comment. So, yeah, but these guys are fantastic for just, reaching in and getting tiny stuff. It just works so
Mm-hmm.
great. So I really, if you don't have a pair of tiny brass tweezers for your pickle, get some because they're one. I seriously have several pairs over there because it's, you want to reach in and grab it with something, and these things, just can be too dull.
Yeah.
And if you've got the big flat ones, the big flat copper tweezers, those make me nuts because they get so
Oh, yeah.
thin and they just etch down and get so thin on the tips. But
Cut them off.
that's the thing. Yep. Cut them off, file them off, and then you've got a shorter, blunter shaped
Yep.
pair of copper tongs that way too. So
And
yeah.
these copper tongs, and I actually use them for some of my glass blowing, not blowing, but glass manipulating. So
Right.
they've got a little tread right here, or
Yeah.
thread, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
So
that's what mine.
those are handy. I don't use these in the pickle, but these could be much better than the ones that I have for my
Yeah,
pickle.
I have the same ones, and I do use those for the pickle because they are a lot hardier than the sheet metal ones. So yeah, I do use those for my pickle, and I do like them a lot better because the other ones just get so thin. And I actually picked up a piece out of the pickle the other day with the ones from Baleen, and they are the strip instead of
Yeah.
the rods like this. And they were so thin, they just went when I picked up the piece. And I was like, okay. So I just cut them down, and my workmate looked at me and she was like, oh my God, what have you done? And I was like, yeah, they just had to go. Like, cut them right off. But
Had to
now
go.
they're about, that much shorter than they were before. But
If
you
if
got
you're
to,
good with
you have to if they're,
Yeah.
change up your pickle tongs if
have
you
to
need to.
modify your tools. If the
Yeah.
tool isn't working, make it work.
Mhm.
I was going to say, if you are an adept with chopsticks,
Right. Yes. I do have
um,
chopsticks over there too. Yes.
We
you
had,
can, I mean, the people who are good with those things, like the cooking chopsticks, which are the longer ones, are great for getting into a deeper pickle pot.
And
if
they
you're good
have
at that.
the plastic ones for kids that have like they're joined at the top.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So
Those are perfect.
those are fun too.
So Sahar
They're
is
cute.
asking, can you
Yeah.
technically use stainless steel tweezers in pickle? And it's like, yes, technically you
but
can. The reason that most of us who are teachers don't, are like, no, 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 never do that, is because as anybody who sees you doing that,
Yeah.
and grabs a regular pair of steel tweezers and sticks them in your pickle pot, then whatever they pick out of there, whatever silver or gold thing they pick out of there, is going to be copper plated
Yeah.
if it's the wrong tweezers. So
Yeah.
it's really more about making sure that I and my students don't make a mistake.
Right.
If you know that you can take, that you will always know which are your stainless steel and which are your others, that's fine. And then, of course, even stainless steel sometimes, depending on the alloy,
Yeah.
can have, specs that aren't stainless, and then you can have steel plated
Yeah.
tweezers that are chrome, or steel tweezers that are chrome plated.
Yeah.
And when the plating wears off, then they'll do. And what happens is if you put iron in the pickle, the iron goes into solution and the copper comes out. They do this do-si-do thing. It's this really nice chemical. It's everything to do with the activation series, if anybody's in chemistry. The activation series of the metals, that the copper's more reactive, but the iron goes into solution, the copper comes out. So that's why you don't want steel in there.
Yeah, I used a little steel wool to copper plate a piece of copper to hide the silver solder.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Which,
the biggest problem though with the stainless steel, stainless steel in your pickle, if you're doing it at home, that's one thing. But just imagine one day you picked up the wrong pair, on something important, and you can undo that. You can strip the pickle plating back off.
Flashing off.
Yeah,
yes.
you can take that back off.
But it will etch the surface of your metal a bit. So
just slightly, yeah. But but there is a saving, element that you can do. But just as a best practice, it's usually a good idea not to have, the steel around your pickle, just in case, to avoid that from happening. And that's why I recommend these guys, because you do have a tinier option that's just a little more precise and a little bit easier to work with. So so if you can go with something like that instead, do that. I mean, they're hardy little tweezers, so they work really well. But as I said,
I have a tip.
What have you got? What's your pickle tip?
A plastic lid on your mason jar to store your pickle that you create but don't need right away.
Yeah, well, that's actually super important, because you never want to have, so pickle's an acid, even though it's a fairly mild one. You never want to have a metal lid on your pickle, because it will corrode it. And the metal is, guess what? Iron. Yeah. So now flakes of iron are going to be in your pickle, and then that's a mess. Then you can't get that out. So.
Well, and Sahar, again, did you see Julia's little tea strainer, the plastic tea strainer? Great for small parts in the pickle, right? One of the things, and I love the tip about the plastic lids. I use that on my plastic lids too. There you go.
Tea strainer, tiny tea strainer, Sahar, plastic.
Hi, David.
I got it on Amazon.
It's David from Peppy Tools. Hi, shout out to Peppy Tools. We love you guys. Yay. So yes, there are standard pickles that you can buy from places like Rio or Peppy Tools or Eurotool or any of the jewelry supply places. Rio has, Rio pickle. And these things are granular, and for some people they get a little nervous about those in the studio. And there are other substitutes that you can use. One of the things that, instead of shipping that kind of chemical, that I like to use is something like pH Down. And pH Down you can get at the hardware store or spa places, pool supply places, for hot tubs and things like that. I love this stuff. It's just sodium bisulfate, pH Down, and you mix it. It's the same stuff that you would use in a hot tub to lower the pH in your hot tub, and you can mix this in a little bit stronger strength with your water. If you are in an area where you have a lot of iron in your water, you may want to use distilled water in your pickle.
You definitely want to use distilled water.
So if you have problems with like your stuff plating and you're like, why is it plating? I don't know where the steel's coming from. It may be in the water. So if you're using tap water that has a lot of iron in it, you may want to switch to distilled water. And, you can get distilled water.
Definitely want to switch to distilled water.
Yeah, you may want to switch to distilled water anyway, and, just to sort of keep things clean. But, and you can pick up a gallon of distilled water at the drugstore or the grocery store. But this stuff, it's, a lot cheaper. It's easier. It's, and sometimes you can get it lavender scented. So it doesn't have any fumes to it. It doesn't have any additional, chemicals that are, really dangerous for you in terms of, like being an acid like sulfuric or nitric or anything like that. So
don't use sulfuric acid.
Yeah, no.
Dilute sulfuric acid is what was traditionally used in the trade, and nobody uses that anymore.
Right.
So Sparex, which is what, and Rio pickle. So Sparex and Rio pickle and, most of these other pickles are basically just sodium bisulfate.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't really know what the story is with Sparex. Sparex does tend to make this weird brown snot.
Yeah, I don't like it.
I don't understand. So, and it's also a lot cheaper to just buy the sodium bisulfate.
I know, right? And you can get it locally and you don't have to ship it. So you're saving, I mean, and again, it's Earth Month. It's a great way to sort of like go down the road where you don't have to like ship something across the country when you can get it locally, right? The other thing that, speaking of Earth Month, that you can do is go with something that's a little bit more food conscious, earth friendly, and not as hazardous in terms of chemicals in your studio. If you want to go with something a little bit safer, something like Pickle It. And Pickle It is a is that what you use, Helen?
I have
Yeah.
originally, yeah.
So this gets really great reviews from people that use it on Rio's website. It's food grade chemicals, so I'm guessing
It's citric acid.
exactly right. So, and you can get citric acid at the grocery store, and most grocery stores will carry citric acid in the canning section of the grocery store. And you can also find it for you guys out there who are hunters, or gals that are hunters. You can actually get it at a lot of like sporting goods stores that have supplies for sausage making and meat preservation. So you can actually find this in a couple of different places. But citric acid makes a great pickle, and it's earth friendly and not as intimidating as some of the other chemicals that you might have in the studio. Some people like to mix this with salt, and there are lots of different recipes for the citric acid compound or citric acid pickles. The other one that you can use that works really great is just vinegar, all-purpose white vinegar with some natural sea salt. And that works great as a pickle. In fact, I like this a lot if I'm working with brass. I'll use the citric and salt, or I'll use my vinegar and salt to do any of my brass pieces, because it keeps the brass from turning pink. A lot of people get really frustrated with the sodium bisulfate because it turns so pink when the metal comes out, the brass. And using something besides sodium bisulfate on brass will keep that from happening. So there you go.
It will in the pickle. If you're heating the brass, if you're soldering the brass,
Yes.
you are still going to get the copper flashing, because the reason you're getting the copper flashing is because the yellow color in brass comes from zinc.
True.
So
But
when you burn off the zinc, because zinc is really volatile, the surface will be pink.
Right.
And if you pickle it, more zinc comes off.
True.
Right.
But using the salt and vinegar, it actually takes it back to yellow.
Oh, sure, because it's essentially like super pickle, so it's etching
Right.
away the surface.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it etches
Right.
out the copper really quickly, and it gives you that nice yellow surface back rather than the pink that you get a lot of times with the sodium bisulfate, which is etching out your zinc more quickly than the copper. So it's a good solution. But speaking of pickle plating, if you've got too much, I think somebody was asking about, they noticed that their pickle's turning blue really fast, and it works.
Yeah, that was Sahar.
Yeah, and Sahar, the pink that or the blue that you're seeing in your pickle is actually the copper salts as they're etching off of your copper. Yep. And so it turns this beautiful Caribbean blue, and that's the same chemical that you would see that makes things like turquoise, blue, and azurite, blue and green, and malachite.
They use it in glass.
And yeah, and so that is those are the copper salts that have been etching out. It does not mean that your pickle has gone bad. It just means that your pickle's working and is diluting basically the copper into the solution. So it doesn't mean that it's not working. In fact, mine is really super blue, and it is.
I had the same pickle in my pickle pot for over a decade.
Yeah,
and the only reason
mine's been in there for almost 2 years now.
Right.
Yeah,
and because I was mostly pickling, I wasn't pickling a lot of stuff, so I was doing a lot of chain making, so I wasn't doing. So the pickle just doesn't get as blue.
But that blue does not mean that your pickle has gone bad. A lot of people think that it does, and it does not mean that it's gone bad at all. The only time it's going to go bad is if you neutralize it accidentally with something like baking soda.
Right.
Yeah.
I ended up having to switch mine out because I was doing the chemistry with the slaked lime, with the pickling lime to make it basic. I went too far. I made it too basic. And if you make it too basic, then the copper goes back into solution. And I was like, shit. So I had to add more pickle to make it more acid, and the only pickle I had was the pickle that was in my pickle pot. So
Right.
I was like,
Yeah.
and then I just mixed up some fresh.
Yeah.
Because my science experiment was, I went too far.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and for those of you that work with like the sodium bisulfate kinds of pickle, sodium bisulfate not only is aggressive and etches, copper off and the oxides off, it also has a tendency to be a little corrosive on iron as well and steel, as well as natural fibers like cotton. So if you're wearing like a lot of cotton clothes in the studio, which are great because they're a little more fire resistant, you may find if you're splattering pickle or wiping your hands, after your pickle on your clothes, down the road after a couple of washes, it looks like you've like got little cigarette burns all over your clothes, or a little hole, or moths or something. It's they're pickle holes, and I hate that because they show up like 3 washes later. They usually don't happen immediately, but it's just a little corrosive on those cotton fibers. So you may find that can happen. If you think you have,
reason you should never quench hot metal in pickle for exactly this reason.
Exactly,
it will splash, and it will give you that little moth-eaten jewelers.
Well, one of the things that you can do as a solution to that, if you know that you've got pickle on your clothes, is if you have either a spray bottle with some baking soda and water in it, you can kind of spritz your clothes with it and it'll neutralize it, or just put like a 1/4 cup of baking soda into your wash. So if you're in the studio every day, and it's just going to make your clothes cleaner and brighter and smell better. But it also neutralizes the pickle that gets in your clothes too. So that helps as well. But if you accidentally pickle plate something by getting some steel or iron in your pickle, you can make some super pickle. Super pickle. It's got a cape and everything. So what you do is you mix up some fresh hot pickle and you add some hydrogen peroxide. And the hydrogen.
Actually, you don't have to mix fresh pickle. You can use pickle from your pickle pot.
I usually mix it fresh. I just make some hot, fresh little batch, and then I'll add it back to my pickle later.
Yeah, I just scoop some out of my pickle pot
and just add.
And then I add hydrogen peroxide to it. And then what's cool about it, which you're probably going to tell them, is what happens when it sits for a while.
Oh, it starts to etch. It bubbles.
Well, it etches, so it'll etch off the copper, right? You put your piece in and it etches off the copper flashing if on your silver or your gold or your whatever your piece is. But it has a fairly short shelf life. So as it breaks down,
it turns, it's the chemistry for this is H2O2. So as it is expending that oxygen in the mix for H2O2, it turns into H2O, which is water. And so for those chemists out there, it's like it's losing an electron. So yeah, it's shedding off.
Oxygen.
It's losing an oxygen molecule. So in the process, it just turns into water. So you can put it right back into your pickle without fear of it doing anything weird or bad to your pickle.
Right.
So as soon as I make some,
pickle,
I
just diluted pickle.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but the hydrogen peroxide, that oxygen just like etches off that little bit and really helps a lot. If I'm trying to like really strip back some brass real quick, I'll add a little bit of that just to give it a pop, and it usually just punches up the pickle there for a few minutes. But
and then just to reiterate, you said vinegar and salt was really good for keeping the brass yellow.
Yeah, it does. It works really well for that. Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, vinegar and salt. So what I'd recommend, because I know a lot of times people have, a little pickle pot or small spaces, and if you have like one of the little dippers like this,
I do.
What you can do is put some warm water in there, just water, and have your different jars that you can put into the pickle, right? Or into the water. So that will warm your jar. Oh, Helen, are you so shocked and surprised? And then if you've got something like...
I'm surprised that Jennifer has brilliant tips.
And then you've got something
Why
like...
am I surprised? I should not be.
Like, uh-oh, that's my super pickle. Great. But wait, I have brass to do. I'm going to use my citric and salt.
I should color coordinate my lids.
I know, right? So, yeah. So you can just put warm water in here, get your hot water nice and hot.
And
then
these
just
are meant to go in hot water.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So you just switch
Canning
out
jars.
whatever you're using. Yeah, if you're using canning jars, fantastic. And use the plastic lids, just switch them out. And that way, if you're trying to warm up your liver of sulfur or trying to warm up your, whatever you've got, it makes it real easy to change that without having to have multiple hot pots or,
And
pads
then
around.
your pot is not corroded with
Right.
stuff.
Exactly
Which
right.
mine is.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if you can see mine.
yeah,
but my other one in the background is huge.
Because it is an acid. And
Yeah.
even if it's just vinegar or lemon juice or something, it's still gradually going to corrode
Yeah.
the glaze off the inside of the crock pot.
Yeah, and it is still going to be, aggressive on things like steel. Vinegar is still going to be aggressive on steel. So if you've got, I love going to Amazon and getting like the little plastic lids like you're talking about. And
That's where I got mine.
Yeah, and I have mine
And they
color
came in
coded.
2 different sizes, the wide mouth and the regular size.
Yep, that's exactly what I got. Yeah, I think you recommended it for me. I think at one point I was like, very smart, because I'd been doing my old pickle in one like this in the pickle jar, and it was etching the top of the lid off.
Yeah, because
So-
those lids, they have a rubber seal, they have a rubber layer,
Yeah,
Yeah,
and they're not designed
Yeah.
for long-term
Oh, yeah.
use.
and
So this
these
one's almost
do
done.
also have a gasket in them.
yeah,
Mhm.
So
exactly
that-
right.
I don't know if you can see it,
Well,
but
that's good.
Yeah,
they do
That's
have
really
a gasket in there.
yeah.
That's even better.
What else
Yeah.
I got? Yeah. So pickle tips.
Okay, so
Yeah, what do you
before
got?
we stop, I have
Yeah.
2 more things.
What do you
One
got?
is there's this myth that citric acid or lemon juice or vinegar is safer.
But
Right? I'm gonna get
why?
on my little I'm gonna get on my little environmental soapbox
It
here.
is,
It's food safe,
but it's
food
not.
safe.
It's food safe.
Right.
It's food safe, and it's less toxic, and it's all that until you use it as pickle. And
Yeah.
the minute you put your stuff in there with copper, and the copper comes out of it and is in the solution, and as soon as it starts, because even the vinegar and salt, or even the lemon juice or the citric acid will turn blue eventually.
It's the blue stuff.
It's the blue stuff, so it's not the basic pickle. So it's like, yes, if you just didn't have mixed up your citric acid pickle and never used it, yes, that would be safe.
Yeah.
But if you use it, then it becomes toxic to marine life, to any aquatic life, and so that's why it's super important
Right.
to treat it,
Even
'cause
in
it's
small
10 times
amounts.
more toxic.
So
Yeah,
the thing,
disposing properly.
and I just saw somebody post this, that they were using the pickle it because it's food safe, and they had posted, it's like, it's great because I can just pour it down the sink, and I'm like, no, because you don't want to be rinsing any of that stuff down the sink.
No.
Neutralize it, and Julia has a great.
You shouldn't neutralize it
But
either.
you've got a great tip for how to do it on your website, on your other website.
Right. So there's if you go to shoeboxstudio.com and look up pickle, there's a whole article there that explains how to do the science experiment to treat it and get the copper out of solution into a solid form again, and then
Right.
it can go into the waste stream, because just evaporating it doesn't solve the problem.
Right.
Because once it gets wet again, and landfills, it always gets wet,
Yeah.
it comes back out of solution. Goes back into solution.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to do the science experiment, and that's totally fine if you don't, if you live in an urban environment, take it to household hazardous waste.
Right.
But this is one reason why you shouldn't treat it. You shouldn't neutralize it or do anything to it. You should take it to household hazardous waste in its sort of simplest
As
and
is.
purest form, so that they can do the science experiment to it. Because if you neutralize it, you've changed things for them. You've made it harder for them to process. So you just put it in a container. You want to mark it.
Yeah, so even like, this is what I consider my waste, or what I would use for plating or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. But unfortunately, this is backwards because it's Instagram. So what this says is pickle, quote unquote, and it says sodium bisulfate contaminated with copper. So this is how you would take it to household hazardous waste. You'd write on there what is in it. Don't mix anything else into it. Don't put your liver of sulfur in it. Don't put baking soda in it, nothing. Just take it like this.
Yeah.
And when you're carrying it to household hazardous waste, you're not carrying it in the passenger compartment. You're putting it in a bucket, and then making sure the bucket stands up straight in your trunk, right? Because if somebody hits you, you don't want all that stuff splashing all over you.
Oh, that's a good
One more
point.
tip.
What's your other tip? She's got so
My
many
other
tips.
tip-
She's a pickle queen.
is this stuff. So again, those of us who live in maritime environments are lucky that we can get this at our local Ace Hardware. This is bronze wool.
Right.
So if
You can get that at woodworking supplies too. They
you
use
can
it.
get it at woodworking supplies, yes, because this is the coarse one. This is the coarse one, which is actually quite coarse, but it will give a nice texture to stuff. This one is the fine one, and it's really very fine. You can see that the bronze wool is really quite fine. So instead of using steel wool, use bronze wool, because then there won't be any tiny little fragments of steel that get caught on your piece if you have to put it back in the pickle, because that will cause the pickle to plate copper out onto your piece. If a little piece of bronze wool gets caught on there, it won't cause a problem. The reason you can find this around shipbuilding is because if you want to do varnished bright work on a boat, and woodworking too, and you need to steel wool the layers of varnish in between the coats. If you do it with steel wool on a boat, it will rust and you'll have little specks in your varnish.
Right.
So that's why they use this for that, and why the woodworkers for the same reason.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, and there's another thing about the steel wool too. A lot of times it either contains one or the other. It usually contains soaps, because it's like SOS pads and they contain like a detergent in them, and or oils. So a lot of times there's oils in it as well. And you don't want any of that in the studio normally. So I'm usually using, the bronze wool. And marine supply places, boating places, woodworking places, you can usually find that at those places too.
Yeah, I found out the hard way.
Yeah.
That steel wool also affects patina, like Baldwin's patina, the liver sulfur. When I was doing my lentil bead pendants with the kimbu inside, I had done steel wool, and then there were little fragments left in there. And then when I patinaed it, I was like, oh, well, that's kind of cool, but unexpected.
Yeah. So it really does. And it's not just the steel; it's the detergents as well and that stuff too that can really change. Because if it has any sort of ammonia or who knows what's in the detergent. So it's just, and they put that on it to keep the steel from rusting while you're not using it and while it's just sitting there in the package. So there's all kinds of additives that they're putting on the steel wool, and the bronze wool is usually pretty clean. They don't need to do that to it. So
it doesn't. I know what you're talking about. The steel wool has a sort of oily feel to it.
Yep.
The bronze wool doesn't.
Yeah.
It's
and if you're using steel wool in your kitchen, switch to bronze wool, because it doesn't shed like the steel does. It doesn't rust on your sink like the steel does. So it doesn't rust. That's the cool thing about it. So
so nice.
Yeah,
it's not that much. It's not that much more expensive. I mean, I think a package like this was like $4 or $5 or something. I found.
Well, speaking of pickle plating, Julia.
Yes.
What could you use pickle plating for in something that's coming up class-wise?
Yes. Well, one of the ways that you can get copper onto your gold or silver granules for granulation is to use nice blue pickle.
Yep.
Any pickle that you've been using for a while.
Copper-rich. Copper-rich
Even
pickle.
if you can't see the blue, you still have copper in there, and you could probably make it work. But that's what the tea strainer is for too. For plating my little granules, because it's small and so it's easy. So yes, I'm working on a granulation class. I just finished making these. I'll show you.
What did you do? What have you done?
This. Ugh.
I can't wait to see.
Mm-hmm.
So,
that.
I think I have it. So this is my granulation sieve.
Oh my gosh.
This is 15 different sizes. It goes from bigger than 4 millimeter granules down to less than 0.3 millimeter granules.
Wow.
I am going to show people how to make one of these if they want to, and tell them where to get all the materials.
Tower of granules.
Tower of granules. We're
Yes.
doing a 2-part granulation class. So the first part is about how to make the granules and sort them. That's what the granulation sieve is for, is a sorting thing. So making the granules and sorting them. And then the second part, we will plate them and apply them to the
Right.
You know, we'll do a couple of different ways to get them on there. So one way to get the copper on is to plate them onto the granules using the spent pickle. Another way to get the copper on is to mix a solution that
Like
has
glue.
copper in
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
some copper glue. And I just learned in doing some reading about granulation that chrysocolla means gold glue.
Yep.
Because it's a copper, it's a
They grind it.
copper-bearing,
Yeah, they
right,
grind it down.
copper-bearing mineral, and so that was the one of the, because this granulation has been done for 3,000 years.
Yep.
I mean, you know, since
Well,
we
chrysocolla was
started
used
finding-
for all kinds of stuff. It was a natural pigment. They were using it as
Yep.
makeup. They were using it for granulation. Yeah, just ask the Egyptians. They knew it all.
Just
They were
ask the
doing that stuff.
Egyptians. They knew it all.
Well,
Chrysocolla.
so
all
speaking
your
of
household
which,
needs.
speaking of granulation, because we have some gold add-on classes coming up. We've got
Right.
the granulation class, we've got the gold fill class, and we've got, I'm going to be doing gold overlay. That's going to be added to the schedule next, coming up soon. So keep your eyes out for that. What else is coming up, Helen?
We have,
Kombu.
yep,
Kombu.
Kombu. We have gravity
yeah.
casting. Oh no, that's sold out actually. We have
Yeah.
jump rings demystified. Jump ring
yeah.
cutters. Sorry, jump ring cutters. That is on Sunday, which is May 2nd. We have lion punch forward texturing. Oh, we have burrs demystified.
Demystified. Yes.
And that's
For
on.
anybody who took the files demystified class.
Yes.
Yeah.
The next one in that series is the burrs demystified, because there are places that you can't get with a file.
That's right.
But
That's right.
Jennifer's your girl. She'll show you how to get to them.
There
He is the
burrs.
You know,
queen of burrs.
I am. I really feel like that.
Burrs.
I seriously do feel like that.
No
Because
burrs under her saddle.
that's right. That's right. But I gotta tell you, man, there's so many burrs out there, and people get so intimidated by burrs, and it's just like, you know, what are they all for? What do they all do? Which ones do I need? What's going to work? What's not? Why burrs? And I love that the fox going, why burrs? Because there are so many, and it's like, what do you do with them? What kinds are there? What do the different shapes do? Why do I need, you know, one more than another? And what do the different metals mean? And, you know, so there's just, there's so many things. And if you've got, you know, any of those little attachments and burrs and can't get into those spaces, you're like, my needle files don't fit, sandpaper keeps breaking, I you know, you don't know how to do like thrumming and bobbing. Yeah, it's kind of like, yeah, it's like, let's not go that old school. But you know, burrs are incredibly useful in the studio, and they're incredibly versatile in a lot of ways. So yeah, if you're one of those people that's like, I just really need to get better at this and understand what they all do and how to make the best of that and make my studio more efficient, burrs are a great solution for a lot of reasons. So yeah.
Yep, we're going to do
run them
some.
backwards.
Say what?
You can even run them backwards.
You can, frontwards, backwards, sideways, and in little punch or little line punch forwards, you can even run them back and forth. Forwards, backwards, and back and forth. So yeah, there's all kinds of things you can do with the burrs. So yeah, but please
We have
do.
reticulation coming up.
Oh, reticulation, indeed.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do. Let's see, what else is coming up.
We have a bevel class, and we're gonna do. We don't have it listed yet, but etch in a bag. Oh my goodness! Oh my
etching in a
goodness.
bag.
This is like a super low tech etching that uses Ziploc bags and a brayer.
Right.
So
That's
And
awesome.
then someone just mentioned the hinge class. We're gonna do lockets and boxes. Two separate
those
classes.
are already up. Those
Right.
are already up. So lockets and boxes. I
Right.
had several people who were like, "We want you to do those again. We haven't.
Yeah.
We missed it last time." And I'm like, "Okay." So
Yeah.
I'm actually doing it in the afternoons, a couple of consecutive weeks in June and July, because that's when I'm not tutoring. So normally I can't teach classes in the afternoon. So this is like a really special thing that I'm doing Tuesday, Thursday. You know, it's like 2 to 4:30 in the late afternoon. On a Tuesday, Thursday, 2 weeks in a row for the lockets class, and then there's a week break, and then same kind of thing for the boxes. But
Great.
have a look at the schedule.
Yeah.
You know, plan your vacation.
Yeah.
Around
And
your
sign up
lockets
for the
class.
newsletter. Sign up for the newsletter and for all
Yep.
of our, you know, announcements. But a lot of the like real quick listings, if you want to see stuff quick, it's usually going to be here on Instagram, because we can do that really quickly and immediately and let you know what's going on. Also, for people who are taking multiple classes, you get our frequent flyer discount. Our flying box discount
program. Somebody just signed up for the bezel class and got it for like, I don't know, half off or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know a couple of people that have taken classes for free because they've taken a series of classes and end up getting, discounts so that they don't, free classes.
You earn points toward more classes. And then you can also, if you have a referral code. So if you have a friend who wants to take a class, your friend gets a discount and you get a discount.
Right.
So if you have, look at
Simon.
You have,
say hi?
5 friends, you'll get a class for free.
Yeah, that's right. I have a friend. He's a dog.
You do. But he doesn't take classes.
Come say hi. Oh, yes, it is.
Like, he's a little shy. He's a little camera shy.
Oh, he's not.
It's snack time.
He's a part-time model. What are you talking about? Half the baristas in Seattle know this guy.
For good reason.
Like, here's a pup cup. Indeed.
Well, one other thing I'd like to say too is that all of the Lion Punch for texture, we're going to actually also have a rolling mill texture class. The etching in a bag, all of that stuff can then be translated or prepare you for the lockets and the boxes classes.
Right.
That way you can have, a pattern on your metal.
Exactly.
In addition to making the project at hand.
And I'm working on the gold overlay class right now. So I've got like all my little bits of gold that I'm going to be doing on the surface. So I know there are a lot of people that like that. It's like black with a little flash of gold through it. So adding gold onto the surface is going to be fantastic.
Yes, that was Jennifer's thing. She's like, we have to do a whole series of classes on adding gold. And
to make it affordable to add gold, right? So absolutely. Yeah, and the flying box discount, exactly. That's what's coming up. And if you have any other questions about Pickle, or you have any hints or tips, we're going to post this on our page. And let us know what you think about that and about your pickle tips. And I'd love to hear them. Yeah. So thanks, everybody.
Come join us.
Yeah. So we'll see you guys later on, and have a great evening. We'll see you later. Bye.
Goodbye.